Well, good morning. I'm Jeff Coleman.
And I'm Debra Pinkerton. Welcome to Morning Light.
In just a minute, our Morning Light panel will go behind the headlines.
But first, here's a preview of what's coming up later in the show. He is a former White House aide, news analyst, pastor, and is the host of State of Independence right here on Lighthouse TV. We will talk with Joe Watkins about his extraordinary faith journey and what we can expect to see on his show this season.
Every time we talk to Joe Watkins, there's something more. It keeps going deeper. It's going to be a
Wonderful
great
interview.
conversation. Well, the details are eerily familiar. A troubled 18-year-old with access to an assault rifle planning a mass shooting at a high school in Mooresville, Indiana, a community just 20 miles south of Indianapolis. Thankfully, an alert friend called a school shooting hotline, leading authorities to the suspect. Crisis averted.
Yeah,
Take a
as
deep
you
breath.
said, yes, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Indeed. Yeah.
Well, the teen is facing conspiracy to commit murder and terrorism-related charges, but this begs a larger question. As students like the 12th grader who has complex gender identity issues, suicide, depression, and family conflict, should schools do more? Some states, including Indiana, are considering measures allowing chaplains with a parent's permission to provide spiritual guidance. Is it time to follow the military example in public schools and get divine help for hurting students?
There's something intuitive about when someone is hurting to be able to say, can I pray with you? Can we talk about the deeper things that are going on? Public schools have had this wall around them for a long time. Maybe it's a good wall, maybe not.
It needs to be broken down.
All right, you want to be on the panel today? Well, 195 years ago, another Pennsylvania governor, George Wolfe, made a passionate plea to the state legislature to create public schools to help the, get this, moral and intellectual cultivation of all classes of our citizens. Well, they listened, and the mission of public schools to build a moral framework for society was underway. How are we doing nearly 200 years later? Is there a way for public schools to recover the governor's vision? We'll tackle these questions with the Morning Light panel this morning. And I'm so privileged to welcome back Megan Martin. Megan, it's such a busy schedule, and you make time for us. Thank you for doing that.
It's my pleasure to be here, Jeff. Yeah. Thank you for inviting me.
Cynthia, Lyons, thank you. And you're busy as well, but no coaching right now, right? You're not...
coaching, but a smaller group.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
Smaller group.
Swim coach for viewers who have not met you yet. And John Wetzel, former Secretary of Corrections, and on a mission to save the mission of corrections across the country. That's a
not doing much.
that's a small mission.
Chilling.
I want to talk about this. Every time there is anything related to a school shooting, in this case, thank God, as Debra said, it was not a shooting that resulted in fatalities. There was no shooting. But there was a shooter with a plan and a backpack and a notebook, all of these familiar things that were happening. Deep heartache of this, a young person lost a mom, had a near fatal car crash with a DUI driver. Pretty angry, pretty bitter. Cynthia, what is going on that there is such deep despair? And by the way, she was connected to all the right mental health experts at school. She had a lot of help, a lot of people, a lot of counselors, a senior at this high school. What's going on?
Well, first of all, thank the good Lord above that someone picked up the phone and said there's an issue.
It took some courage.
Sure.
Yeah.
And really, I know, at least in this state, there's a Safe to Say program that if you have any concerns, you pick up the phone 24 hours a day and you can get in touch with somebody. Boy, if we knew what was going on, wouldn't that solve a lot of problems? I think, at least in our school district, we're expanding our guidance services. There's a lot of hurting children out there. One of my thoughts really is the phones, social media, what people are seeing online, what is okay, what is not okay. It's scary. It's scary.
I hear the parents saying, like, but the phone is their only connection. I don't have a husband. I don't have a wife. This is the babysitter for the child. This is where they're getting entertainment. Everything is now in the phone. What's happening to the family? This is a question that we come back to a lot.
Sure.
But you say, well, where's mom? In this case, mom is gone. Mom's dead. What are you seeing as some of the larger issues, Megan?
Sure. Jeff, it's a heartbreaking issue, and thank God that this young person did not commit the crimes that they had intended to commit. And I think that as parents, you know, God bless the father who is now widowed. Anybody who knows me knows that my husband was widowed when I met him, and how incredibly, you know, difficult it is and painful it is to be widowed and to be raising a child as a truly single parent. And so
does that create a whole separate set of circumstances and issues that if with a parent who's lost a parent or a spouse?
I think that it can, but I would say this, you know, I have a stepson who I love as deeply as if I had born him myself, and we created a loving, nurturing, faith-filled environment for all three of our children, and I think that that's part of it. I think that the society has become so secularized. People are focusing on all the wrong things. They focus on Hollywood. They focus on things instead of having their priorities on who am I? Am I being the best person I can be? And having faith at the center of their lives as their North Star, as their moral compass. I think that when people have a relationship with our Lord and Savior, they know that they're being given God's grace. They know that they're being given strength, and we all know that we can do all things through Christ who gives us strength. And I think that for children, if they were given that message, that it would maybe it would help them, and maybe this child wouldn't have felt like he or she was in so much despair that they had to take such a drastic measure.
So, John, when people come into the correction system, they've been they're awaiting trial or they've been sentenced and they're going to the intake. I mean, there's a psychological evaluation, but there's also access to spiritual help, right? There's a chaplain or chaplaincy. This is not available in public schools, but it isn't, to me, an easy black and white issue, right? Because if you're opening the chaplaincy like they're proposing it in Indiana, Tennessee, some other states, that definition of spirituality can mean a lot of things and always not a helpful remedy. What's your thought just generally on chaplains in a public, taxpayer-funded setting? Voluntary, involuntary, access to spiritual help, or is it just a mental health issue?
Yeah, well, you got to start with context. And in the case of prisons and jails, there's actually a federal law that's called the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act, which requires that if someone has a sincerely held religious belief, because we've removed their liberty from being in the community, they have to have access to it in the way they believe. So there's no currently constitutional right to do this. But let me pivot to the kids. Forget intake for a second.
Yeah.
They're unanchored. What are they anchored to? You decouple them from pro-social supports during COVID. You push them to a phone, right? We go, oh, why are you on your phone? Well, where else were they going to be for a couple years?
Right.
So you talk about the breakdown in families, right? So now you have one parent struggling. And then let's look at all the destabilizing factors that they're presented with. When you say to me, throw in a guidance counselor, that's great if you allow the guidance counselor to focus on the kid's needs, not alphabetically assign them and see what their progress is as it relates to teaching their. I mean, you have an opportunity, you have resources in it. I'm in schools in Elko. We have some coaches who coaches, teachers, guidance counselors who have the ability, the willingness to do this. They're strapped to a desk and a curriculum, and absent that. So the question is, what mechanism of supports do we need to insert in these schools, which we clearly do? Yeah. And then people want to jump to, oh, they don't put them in the public schools. No, for some people like me, it's feed them or have them go to public school or have them go to private school and then let's figure it out. You know what I mean? So we need to figure out what supports these kids need to enhance the learning. When your stomach's growling, you're not thinking about algebra.
Right. Is spiritual support one of those pillars?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to holistic, but also factor into access to guns.
So you're nodding.
Well, I'm nodding because you're exactly right. So the alphabetizing of guidance counselors is you have Mr. Diener if you're A through K. You have, and those are the students then that those people see. Now, on emergency basis, if somebody isn't available, they go right to the next person. But the other thing, I'll be honest, the other thing that our district does at a time, we call it prime time on Wednesdays, and the kids
to be clear, you're in the public school system.
We're in the public school system, and they have access to clubs. They have a morning club that, is spiritually based during our prime time. They have access to go to a Bible study if they want to. I also think it takes, we can talk as much as we want about, do we have chaplains in the school, and are the preachers coming in, and when do people come in and offer these services? But aren't we called to be the hands and the feet?
Meaning the teachers.
Meaning the teachers, meaning the cafeteria staff, meaning the administration.
Do they have that freedom? Yeah.
To some extent they do, but the hands and feet to me sometimes aren't necessarily going, let's look at Luke 4.
Right.
It's how's your day? Good to see you. You look great today. That's the start of
Friendship
and relationship.
Yes or no on chaplaincy or access to chaplaincy, even perhaps with parental approval?
Oh, Jeff, absolutely yes. I think that, we strive, this is why I do what I do. This is why I went to the Commonwealth Foundation. We fight every day for excellence in education for our children. And the numbers are out, and the education is anything but excellent. The federal data last week released and showed 69% of Pennsylvania 8th graders are not proficient in math, and 69% are not proficient in reading. On top of that, to make matters worse, we have spent an extra $4 billion in the last 4 years. So what we're doing isn't working in terms of their academic proficiencies. And just as you said, John, children, you need to approach this holistically. And kids are bringing their physical self. Have they had good nutrition? Have they had good rest? They're bringing their mental self. They're bringing their emotional self. They're bringing their spiritual self.
It feels like
and they
it
haven't
is all
had that.
sliding into the school, all these external issues and pressures.
Yes.
The first Governor Wolf, the early 1800s, was really the champion for public schools. And the idea was it's going to correct some moral issues in the culture. Take 30 seconds and say, is there a way for us to save public schools? Not just school choice, but to save public schools and recover that vision?
There's not an option not to. The vast majority of the children in Pennsylvania, which is a reducing number, by the way.
Right.
In the next 5 years, we're going to have 5% less school-age children. The majority of them are going to get delivered in a public school system that's not meeting their needs on any level. We have no choice. There's a moral imperative to do it, and a fiscal imperative for employers. Ask them.
Yeah. So very clear mission I think we have. We haven't solved issues today, but I hope we've helped our viewers at least think differently, that they're a part of the solution, as you've all said. So thank you very much, panel.
Thank you.
Very helpful. Well, from the White House to Lighthouse TV, before hosting State of Independence, Joe Watkins worked under President George H.W. Bush. He serves as a news commentator and is also a pastor. How his trust in God has shaped how he views the world and those around him. That's what's up next. You're watching Morning Light on Lighthouse TV.
Lighthouse TV offers programs that educate, inspire, and draw viewers to a closer walk with Jesus. One of those shows is State of Independence, a public affairs program that aims to bring you a conservative Christian view. Joining me is the host, Joe Watkins from Philadelphia. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Debra. How are you?
Good, and you?
I'm a little cold, but I'm fine.
Talk to us about State of Independence, a wonderful show.
I'm just so blessed. I'm so glad that Dan and Margaret Huber and Jeff Coleman reached out to me. It's been 5 years now, and talked to me about the possibility of hosting a show in this wonderful network. And it's been such a blessing for me. It's something that I always dreamed of doing, but never thought I'd have the opportunity to do. And so I have a chance the show is not at all about me. It's about the wonderful people who are guests on our show, who tell about their journey as Christian people for the most part. So we have people who are educators, people who are elected officials, people who used to be elected officials or appointed officials, people who have written books, people who are business folks. They own a shop or a store or have some kind of a business that operates. We have people who are in the arts and entertainment. And then folks who are just regular everyday people, parents who have a story to tell. And it's just wonderful to have them on because we get to see what Christ is doing in the lives of these different people. And the hope is that people are encouraged by it.
Sure, and they're certainly sharing their way, their journey, leading them to what they're doing today and how faith really has helped them through that. How has faith made a difference in your life?
Well, I'm so glad that the Lord found me. I accepted Jesus when I was 19 years old. I'd been in church all my life because I had to go to church, as many young people do. But I made a commitment to follow Jesus when I was 19 years old, a sophomore in college. And when I did that, I just said, Lord, do with my life what you will. Take me where you would have me to go. I just thought that I would be a minister somewhere. I was content to be initially a campus minister at a small campus, a small college. And God took me to all these different places and has allowed me to see all these things. And all that's led to me being able to share on this show every single week on Lighthouse TV, which is a blessing.
Talk to us about some of the guests you're going to be having on your show this year.
Well, we're going to have the chaplain for the Philadelphia Eagles. So for those people who are football fans, you'll get a chance to hear from the chaplain of the Philadelphia Eagles, which is pretty exciting. I'm anxious. For me, the fun part is I get to meet these folks and talk to them, and I ask them all the questions that I've always wanted to ask somebody. About the inner workings of a football team, and certainly in this case, a Super Bowl winning football team, and what that's like and how you minister to them. But we'll have other folks on as well, more elected officials, people who are in office, both on the state and federal level, who talk about their journey, how they came to run for office, and of course, how the Lord is using them while they're there, because it's hard work. It's very, very hard work. We'll talk to some more pastors as well this year, and people who have non-traditional Christian ministries, and we'll talk to people who run homeless shelters and soup kitchens. All very exciting stuff to hear their story about how they came to serve this way, how the Lord led them to serve in the way that they're serving. So I'm very excited about all of it.
Yes, certainly. And that will be an exciting interview. I had interviewed the chaplain for the Philadelphia Eagles before the Super Bowl, and he was telling me what type of guidance he was giving them. So I'm going to be anxious to hear what he has to say since they won the Super Bowl. That will be a wonderful interview.
Oh, thank you so much, Debra. I'm excited, too. I just can't wait.
Tell us, how do you believe God is using your show to make a difference?
I hope that people are coming to Christ through my show. I hope that people who are already in Christ, who already profess to follow Him, are encouraged and strengthened in their walk, in their daily walk as Christian people. And I hope that people who don't know Christ yet will hear the good news of the gospel through what our guests have to say, through what's being said on the show, and they'll make a commitment to follow Jesus, because that's what really matters in all of this. It's not about self-glory, it's not about self-promotion, because I'm just a follower of Christ. I'm just a servant of the Most High. The whole idea is to lead people to the Most High, that they might know Him and love Him for themselves and follow Him.
Yeah, and really, what type of reaction have you received from viewers?
Good reaction, Debra. I'm always surprised at the letters that we get from viewers, and it's just wonderful. Sometimes I'm doing a show, I'm interviewing somebody, and I'm supposing it'll have one effect, and then somebody will write and say, this really touched my life, touched my heart, because I was exactly where this person is, and this has really helped me to see more clearly, or this has helped me to focus on what my walk should look like as a Christian person, how to follow Jesus more closely, or this really led me to want to pray for people who are facing this kind of a situation. We had a guest on who suffered from OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. He was fabulous. But I was just so amazed by the letters that we got from viewers about his journey and the fact that he's such a strong follower of Christ, despite the fact that he has this illness.
Yeah, well, Joe, you are certainly making a difference. We have to take a break, but I want you to stay with us because we're going to be talking to you in the next segment.
Excellent.
This is Black History Month. Joe will share the importance of having African American voices in the political and religious arenas. We are back in 1 minute. February is National Black History Month. Black History Month is an annual celebration of achievements by African Americans and a time to recognize their role in U.S. history. Joining me once again is Joe Watkins. Thank you for being with us, Joe.
Great to be with you, Debra. Great to be with you.
Talk to us about the importance of Black History Month.
Well, it's just so important, of course, to recognize the contributions of Americans and certainly Black History Month gives us a chance to recognize the contributions of African Americans over the course of time. This thing was started in 1926 by the famed African American historian Carter G. Woodson, who started Negro History Week back in 1926, and they decided to celebrate it in February because that was the month that Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass were born. So it started back in 1926. Gerald Ford celebrated Black History Month in 1976 and encouraged everybody else to do the same, signed a proclamation, and the same proclamation that President Donald Trump signed in February of this month to recognize and to celebrate Black History Month nationally.
How can Black history makers really set an example for today?
Well, we can look to some of the things that people did in history, some of the things that African Americans did in history that were important and that helped change the course of our society. Certainly people like the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, Malcolm X as well. I got to meet Martin Luther King Sr., Daddy King, who was just an extraordinary man and who forgave people who had persecuted him. But there are so many African Americans who have made contributions like Jackie Robinson and President Obama and others to celebrate in a month like this. So this is a time to remember their contributions as Americans.
And your contributions too. You are certainly a history maker. How did your faith guide you?
Well, you're very kind to say that, Debra. But God gets all the credit for everything that's happened in my life. I am nothing without Him, and God just blessed me to have a chance to go to boarding school and then to college and to play sports, but most importantly, to have great parents, to have a great mother and a father who were an example to me, which led to me going to work in the White House for the President of the United States, which is certainly a great opportunity for any American to have to support and work for an American president. And then, of course, to preach to preach the gospel of Jesus. What a gift to be able to share the good news of the gospel, to tell other people what God has done for me and what He can do for you too, as I've had a chance to do over the course of time. So I've had a chance to travel nationally and internationally and to work both nationally and internationally. And I'm so grateful to God for it.
Yeah, we're just looking at some of the pictures of you with the presidents, and oh my goodness, you have made a difference just being there, believing in God and sharing your faith.
Thank you so much, Debra. Well, God is good. God is amazingly good. Who would have ever thought that a kid like me from a town would have a shot to work in the White House, to first work for a U.S. senator and then to work for a U.S. president. But God is able to do all things, and He's allowed me to go places that I never thought I'd go. But I place all my faith and trust in Him, and I'm excited even about what He has in store for me as I move forward, because you never know with the Lord where He might put you.
That is certainly true. In 2025, what type of difference do you hope you're going to be making this year?
Well, I certainly hope that through some teaching and preaching and other opportunities, I'll have a chance to make a difference. For whatever reason, I've been included in a few movies, so I'm scheduled to be in a couple of Netflix movies as a TV news anchor, being Jeff Coleman and Debra Pinkerton in the movies, and also in a Amazon movie called The Better Sister. I have a little bit role as a news anchor. I say, Lord, however you want to use me, and whatever good that does for your kingdom, let it so be.
Yeah, that is wonderful. Joe, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Great to be with you, Debra.
And you can watch State of Independence on Lighthouse TV on Fridays at 8, Saturdays at 5:30, and Mondays, also some Mondays in the afternoon. Stay with us. We are back right after the break. Welcome back. Coming up tomorrow on Morning Light, February is American Heart Month. Heart disease is the leading cause of death in the U.S. We will talk to a doctor who will share the warning signs to prevent heart disease. Plus, meet a woman who did all the right things but still had a major heart attack. Hear how her faith helped her in the recovery process. And that's a look at what's coming up tomorrow on Morning Light. Now, Jeff, your closing thoughts.
That's going to be a great show. Well, thank you, Debra. Well, you know, it's so inspiring to look back at all the champions of good causes in the history of our incredible Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Those like Governor George Wolf, introducing the idea of public schools for every child, regardless of status or income. Imagine that. And then those Quakers demanding more reforms of prisons to make them more humane, the humane treatment of incarcerated neighbors. That was our mission. And of course, all those tireless workers for the abolition of slavery who year after year after year advocated for the full emancipation of our brothers and sisters in chains, helping people understand that the Bible didn't mean that slavery should have been a way of life and part of our American story. The common denominator to all of these incredible people, well, they saw a moral wrong and tried to fix it. They saw an imperative enacted. Many, in fact, the majority, saw it as a duty to God. Failure to act would be a sin. So what's the wrong you're trying to right? The idea whose time has come. Maybe it's not as big as abolishing slavery, but if God's put it on your heart, it's time to act. For Debra and the entire Morning Light team, I'm Jeff Coleman. Thanks for watching today. Go check on your neighbors, and God willing, we'll see you tomorrow.